eyes on Kazan. Will BRICS connect the global BRICS? Is a new world order on the agenda? Modi-Putin hugplomacy once again. India gives a peace message on war. Is the BRICS Summit to corner West countries? Watch Global Mirror with me, Shreya Upadhyaya. Ladies and gentlemen, amid an increasingly divided world, the crucial BRICS grouping is meeting at Russia's heartland Kazan. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is currently in Russia, his second visit to the country this year. He was accorded a warm welcome by the Indian diaspora with chants of Vande Mataram and Hare Rama. Ahead of the main summit tomorrow, Prime Minister Modi held a bilateral meeting with President Putin. In fact, as always, it began with a warm hug between the two leaders. Putin, who was speaking in Russian, said that a translation of his speech is not needed because the ties between the two countries are fantastic, making Prime Minister Modi burst into laughter.
Our relations are so tight that I thought that you would understand me without translation.
माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी, प्रिय दोस्तों, कज़ान में आपका स्वागत है इस बार मंत्री जी, प्रिय
У нас такие отношения, что я считал, что вы и так все понимаете. Our relations are so tight that I thought that you would understand me without translation.
माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी, प्रिय दोस्तों, कज़ान में आपका स्वागत है इस बार मंत्री जी, प्रिय
У нас такие отношения, что я считал, что вы и так все понимаете.
PM Modi, meanwhile, once again stressed that dialogue and diplomacy is the only way forward to resolve the Russia-Ukraine war.
एक्सेलेंसी, पिछले एक वर्ष में ब्रिक्स की सफल अध्यक्षता के लिए मैं आपको बधाई देता हूं। 15 वर्षों में ब्रिक्स ने अपनी एक विशेष पहचान बनाई है और अब विश्व के अनेक देश इससे जुड़ना चाहते हैं। कल मैं ब्रिक्स समिट में भाग लेने के लिए उत्सुक हूं। एक्सेलेंसी, रूस और यूक्रेन के बीच चल रहे संघर्ष के विषय पर हम लगातार संपर्क में रहे हैं। जैसा मैंने पहले भी कहा है, हमारा मानना है कि समस्याओं का समाधान शांतिपूर्ण तरीके से ही होना चाहिए। शांति और स्थिरता की जल्द से जल्द बहाली का हम पूरी तरह समर्थन करते हैं। हमारे सभी प्रयास मानवता को प्रमुखता देते हैं। आने वाले समय में भी भारत हर संभव सहयोग देने के लिए तैयार है। एक्सेलेंसी, आज इन सभी विषयों पर विचार साझा करने का एक और महत्वपूर्ण अवसर है।
Now, PM Modi also met BRICS' newest member, President Mahmoud Pezeshkian of Iran. In his first reaction after the meeting, the Iranian president said it was a good meeting with the Indian Prime Minister. Remember, Iran's inclusion in BRICS has sparked discussions about the group's evolving influence on global geopolitics and the economy. Iran's participation also reflects the country's efforts to break free from international isolation, particularly to get its economy out of the US sanctions impact. And right now, the news that we're getting in is that the External Affairs Ministry of India has confirmed that there will be a meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping, something that was very widely speculated after that announcement was made by India and China that their border agreement has now come to a conclusion, that disengagement process has begun between India and China. And now India's External Affairs Ministry confirming that there will indeed be a meeting between Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Xi Jinping of China, the timing and logistics of which are still being figured out. Now remember, in a bid to pose the group as a non-West bloc, wherein Russia is not isolated, the host of this year's BRICS, Vladimir Putin, will aim to portray that Western attempts to seclude Russia have not succeeded. For India, BRICS is more than just a grouping that seeks stronger economic and diplomatic collaborations. It's a forum to portray itself as the voice of Global South, despite a Chinese presence, and balance its relations with the West and the Russia-China nexus. Let's get more clearer perspective on this and have a more a clearer understanding of this entire BRICS summit and what India and Russia are seeking to achieve in this. On the broadcast, I'm joined by Dr. Sergei Dvorianov, Director Communication at the BRICS Culture Media Forum. I'm also joined by Achal Malhotra, former Indian ambassador, and Dr. Rajan Kumar, Associate Professor at the School of International Studies, JNU. Good evening, namaskar, welcome to all of you. Sergei, let me start with you. This is an extremely crucial summit which is being hosted by Russia, by President Vladimir Putin. And like many are speculating that this is also being taken as an opportunity for Russia to showcase to the world, particularly the West and the US, that they are not alone, that leaders from across the world are gathering at the heartland of Russia in Kazan and holding negotiations on various topics in various fields, in various sectors with Russia.
Yes, namaste, namaskar, good evening. Thank you for your question. I want to start that, yesterday, Sheikh Mohammed bin Nayyan, the leader and president of United Emirates, came to Moscow and he met Vladimir Putin and both together. Even he spent one night in Moscow and then he arrived to Kazan. And we can see a lot of other leaders, not only BRICS, but also in format of BRICS Plus, different, for example, even president of Kyrgyzstan, some neighbor country to Russia, and many other presidents, they arrived to Kazan, because right now we can see the new agenda of justice world, new reality, golden age, where we can discuss in the mood of friendship and open hearts, the new principles of cooperation, which is interdependence. We depend on each other. And Western ideology always based on to be dominant and to extract some profit from the suffering of other nations. But our vision that we should support each other, we should growing up together. And that is not only economic agenda, not even political agenda. That is a spiritual agenda as well. That is my vision.
Okay. Okay. Ambassador Achal Malhotra, would India resonate with this sentiment that it wants to view and portray BRICS grouping as a non-West, as an anti-West grouping that has a mind of its own, that wants to operate in terms of its own autonomy and foreign policy and not be influenced by the West?
Precisely. This has been our position. This has been a position not only with BRICS, even on Quad. India is the only country which has always, been very careful. We have never named China, singled out China. We have always said Quad is not against any one particular country, but there are principles involved in the formation of Quad, and we adhere to those principles, which is freedom of, the peaceful, inclusive, Indo-Pacific, etc., etc. So that also applies as far as the BRICS is concerned. What is the USP of BRICS? We must understand. It's not just 45% of population or 35% of the global GDP. BRICS is a grouping, only grouping perhaps, meaningful grouping, which doesn't have a representative from the West. And this has been formed, mostly with the idea of reforming and challenging a global system of governance, which is dominated by the Americans and the Europeans, and a system which was created many, many years ago, which is antiquated. This group seeks multilateralism. This group seeks multipolarity. This group seeks reforms of the, institutions of global governance so that the deprived people, the underdeveloped world, the global South gets its due share. And it has had a wonderful success in the, which is reflected in New Development Bank, the creation of, contingency currency reserves. And now they are seeking de-dollarization of economy, which is reducing dependence on the American currency, trying to do trade in the national currencies, and also seeking, global financial safety net. So the The agenda is very, elaborate and very clear that to
But
form
you
a
know,
group.
Ambassador Achal Malhotra, it's interesting that you say that India wants to be the voice of the global south. Let me take this across to Dr. Rajan Kumar. Dr. Kumar, India has been pitching itself as the voice of the global south. Now, of course, we're getting that latest news with the MEA confirming that there will indeed be a meeting between the leaders of India and China, Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping, something that was widely speculated after yesterday's announcement of the border agreement. But with China's presence in the BRICS grouping, do you think India would be successfully be able to pitch itself as the voice of the global south without any hindrance?
Thank you, Shreya, for having me here. Let me tell you that there are several contenders for the global leadership so far as global south is concerned. So India is certainly one of the leading countries in the global south in terms of its economy, in terms of its democracy, diversity, institutional successes, financial inclusion, etc. So India is taken very positively in the countries of the global south, and the kind of model that it offers to the countries of the global south, that model is also very different from the model which is offered by China. China believes much more on unilateral policy rather than very inclusive and multilateral policy, and this is where we kind of we disagree with many of the Chinese projects. So India is certainly a leader of the global south, and the last G20 summit also you saw how African Union was invited and how that was offered the membership. But at the BRICS, BRICS is now with the expansion of BRICS, this has become much more representative. This organization of BRICS in terms of global south, because now you have countries, many countries from West Asia which have been included in the last summit, and now this you have countries. What is happening with the entry of new members, and new dynamics has also come into BRICS. For instance, many of the countries are oil exporting countries, and India and China are the oil guzzling country, and we need a lot of. So energy has become very important. West Asia, because many of the states are predominantly Islamic, so that will again figure out prominently in the BRICS discussion in the future. So BRICS is expanding, and since many of the countries, including a NATO member, Turkey wants to join, so that kind of signifies the importance of BRICS in the emerging global politics. As Ambassador Malhotra was rightly saying, that the world is becoming multipolar, and the US will remain a dominant country, and many of the countries of the global south, they are not willing to trade US with the BRICS, but at the same time they want to have a very cooperative arrangement with both US and the emerging countries of the global south. So in that context, I think India has lots of appeal in the countries of the global south, and BRICS has become a very important voice, which I cannot say that is the true representative organization of the global south, but again, because most of the leading members of the global south are present now, so they in a way certainly represent the issues of the global south, be it trade, be it WTO rules, be it the reform of the multilateral institutions like United Nations Security Council, be it the climate change, where we are talking of the differential response to etc. So yes, we are representing issues of global south as well, besides the project in the interest
Dr.
of India.
Kumar, India has very strategically and so far smoothly walked that diplomatic tightrope when it has to balance its ties between the West and Russia amid the war. But Dr. Sergei, let me ask you this then. While India tries to balance this out and the US expects India to reach out to Vladimir Putin to end this war, we had the two leaders, Prime Minister Modi and President Putin, meet today, where the Indian Prime Minister reiterated the stance of India once again that dialogue and diplomacy is the only way forward to end this war, and peace is the only way forward. Lots of hugs and lots of jokes that were also made around, reflective of the kind of relationship between the two leaders. But clearly, Russia does take what is being said by India seriously in terms of, sort of trying to maneuver its way through this war and trying to find a peaceful approach.
Yes, very true. First of all, you can see when Shri Narendra Modi arrived to Kazan, a Russian group of devotees, they met him in airport with a chanting of Maha Mantra. And we can see right now Hare Krishna movement, spiritual Hindu movement is very popular in our country, and spiritual knowledge of Vedas as well.
Yeah.
And we are not more any more atheistic country. After destruction of USSR, communist ideology was dominant. Right now, we are open for the spirituality, and our national leader, Vladimir Putin, he is a believer. And he is a similarity between Russia and India that we have a variety of culture, a variety of nations, of languages and traditions as well. And that's why we can see that BRICS is not anti-West, it's non-West, means that right now America creates such a kind of economy where they can change their paper for gold and oil. And of course, we understand the main focus of discussion right now in BRICS is creation of new currency, of BRICS currency, and a new financial system which will be related to justice, related to dharma, related to the real equality of all
But you know, Dr.
countries in the
Sergei,
world.
we've been having these talks on de-dollarization since a very long time, but so far nothing substantial has been achieved by the grouping. You know, and it's not very easy to actually de-dollarize, actually reduce that dependence on the US dollar.
Yes, we can see that right now is a very difficult topic, a very sensitive topic, because power of Western countries is based on the dollar system. And we can see that all countries involved in the international trading, we cannot immediately take and change all the system. That's why I can see that it can be some roadmap, some steps, step by step. But at least we should put to our discussion, and that's I can see that our national leader Vladimir Putin is doing well with this agenda, and he always promote new vision of new BRICS currency.
Okay, okay. Ambassador Achal Malhotra, you know, I want to understand from you the fact that India has been trying to balance its ties, and now we have that very crucial meeting, bilateral meeting between Indian and Chinese leader, Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping coming up tomorrow. The timing and logistics still being figured out by both sides. What do you expect in that meeting? It's happening the first time in 4 years since you know, we had that border tussle with China. Now we've reached an agreement in terms of diplomatic talks, in terms of what the two countries can now achieve and move forward with. What do you think could be the talking points tomorrow between Prime Minister Modi and President Jinping?
Well, I think the 54 months, almost 54 months of sustained diplomatic dialogue between the militaries and the foreign ministries of the two countries has ultimately paid, to the extent that it has been agreed to restore the status quo as it prevailed in the month of May or April 2020. All other issues remain on the table. I mean, we should be happy that this face-off, which lasted for more than 4 years, is over for the moment. But the issue of border determination, international borders, all other issues, China's claim over Arunachal Pradesh, all at this stage. So those problems are going to stay. But the fact that we have all along been saying that unless there is a peace and tranquility at the borders, there can't be any further movement. So now that we have an agreement, there is a reason for us to respond to China. China, by the way, has been reaching out to us for months together. They have been talking through global times, wanting us to, restore, normalize relations. And they have even been warning that we are falling into the trap of Western countries. But from now onwards, there is a scope to go beyond, but we definitely have learned lots of lessons. And I'm sure that India will treat with caution. And we will never allow a situation when our dependence on China would be to the extent that our trade imbalance would, be up $100 billion in China's favor. But this would a conducive atmosphere will also help in multilateral organizations like BRICS, SCO, and many other places where India and China would at least not try to confront in public. And also, a message is going to the global community. There are two warring nations, the two big forces in BRICS have ultimately come to understanding, and henceforth this will not be much of a cause of concern. Should not be a cause of concern for the global scenario. So I think in meeting, no agreements will become, no MOUs, nothing will come as far as I can visualize. But they would generally be happy about the importance of diplomacy and dialogue, which we have been insisting even in the case of Russia, Ukraine, and say that ultimately pays if you have patience and if you have perseverance and pursue your with determination. Ultimately, it pays to whatever extent it has paid. So that I think is the major takeaway from, and from here onwards, it opens the doors for moving ahead.
Sure. Just the first step, I think, is enough to sort of give that heads up to a larger, diplomatic negotiation that can happen in the near future. Dr. Rajan Kumar, the Prime Minister also met with the Iranian President, Mahmoud Pezeshkian, and that was an important bilateral meeting considering the fact that Iran is a new member of the BRICS. We also have, Iran being a rich country in terms of oil and natural gas, clearly energy security being a focus not just for India, but the entire world in times of wars. Also for Iran, it becomes an attempt to move away from the impact of the American sanctions, isn't it?
I think the situation in Iran is very complicated at this moment. Yes, Prime Minister must have congratulated the President of Iran for the new membership that Iran has acquired, and BRICS is an important forum for emerging countries. But also, the kind of geopolitics which is playing out in West Asia. There is a crisis. There is Iran is expecting some kind of attack at any point of time, and then what would be the situation? How will Iran retaliate to that kind of attack, and what kind of attack that would be? So all these are very critical issues for which it's very difficult to predict. And I don't know what exactly the Prime Minister. I don't want to prejudge, or I don't know what exactly Prime Minister would have discussed, but he would have said the same thing that that he has been saying in the several other meetings, that they should resort to some kind of dialogue and diplomacy rather than a very open confrontation. But unfortunately, what is going to happen? We are at the brink of a regional escalation of war in West Asia. Israel will certainly attack, and Iran will certainly retaliate. And then what will happen to that kind of situation? We don't really know. And the sad part is that gradually, because now there are so many members from West Asia as members of this BRICS, so those issues might also reflect in some form in BRICS also in future. So the BRICS has to be careful, because it has to it is already dealing with so many complicated issues, including the Russia-Ukraine war. But on this issue, if the new issues come up, if the rivalries of West Asia also start figuring out in BRICS, so that might complicate the decision-making process in the BRICS. So yes, but as far as sanctions is concerned, the sanctions are going to remain. We do not have much of trade with Iran at this moment. Chabahar port was because of Indian request, it was not under sanction. But again, not much of the progress has taken place. Although trade has, some of the ships are going through that route, but the important railway line which was supposed to be constructed, that has not happened. And because of sanctions, we are not having much of trade with Iran. And I don't see too much of this trade with Iran in the coming few years because of the sanctions.
Okay. Quickly before I wrap up, Dr. Sergei, quick 30 seconds answer from you. For Russia, what would be the big takeaways then? It's an important summit for Vladimir Putin in terms of countering the West, but in terms of, the deliverables, what are you expecting?
It's not important only for Vladimir Putin. It's important for all humanity, because it's given to us hope to create a new model of dialogue of civilization, which will be ethics principles. That's why BRICS is a
Okay, Dr. Sergei, there seems to be an audio issue there. We'll have to leave it there. I have paucity of time. But let's see how this entire BRICS summit moves forward and what it has for India in it, a crucial summit there with Prime Minister Modi in attendance. Dr. Sergei Dvorianov, Dr. Rajan Kumar and Ambassador Achal Malhotra, thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us on Global Mirror and sharing your perspective.